we can't really talk about making HTTP calls or HTTP requests without mentioning HTTP headers. So what are HTTP headers? So HTTP headers, they're just a way for the client and the server to pass additional information to each other. So whenever you're making requests, beside everything else that you can put in a request, you can also add HTTP headers in the request. And the server can also send you headers in the HTTP response. So you would have a key and then a colon, and then you would have the value. So for instance, you can have the content type, which is a default header, and then you can pass application/JSON to tell either the client or the server that the content of the body of the request or the response contain data in the JSON format. Another example can be for authorization. So there is a default authorization header that you can pass, and that usually like a token or an API key that you can pass. So headers are pretty simple. However, they're very powerful. So I'm going to show you some example whenever we're doing some more advanced HTTP requests, how headers are like super important to tell either the client or the server important information about the requests and response that they're passing to each other. So let's go ahead and see how we can pass HTTP headers with Angular when we're making HTTP requests. So before we go into looking how we can pass HTTP headers with Angular, I wanted to show you guys this website called developer.mozilla.org, where you can go to learn a lot about just web technologies. So right now, as you can see, I have the HTTP headers page up, and you can go on this page to learn more about HTTP headers, since this course is mostly focused on how you can use the Angular HTTP communication. So I'm going to show you how you can pass headers, but HTTP headers, they're like a really broad topic. So if you want to learn more about HTTP headers, you can head over to this website and then take a look here. As you can see, there's like a long list of HTTP headers, and they're divided in subcategories. So you can go ahead and take a look here and see which one you might want to use in your application depending on what you have going on. So you can see this list goes on and on and on. And if you look at the definition here, it's exactly the same definition that I just gave you, and that's my source actually. So if you want to learn more, you can go ahead and go on this page. This has nothing to do with Angular. This is just the definition of HTTP headers, how it's defined by whatever rule, which is RFC 668, as you can see here. So if we head over to the Angular documentation official website, and I looked for the HTTP headers, and as you can see, Angular provide a very convenient way to pass HTTP headers with the request that we're making to backend. Now, remember, HTTP headers can be sent with a request, or they can be sent with a response, right? So in this case, since we can only make requests with this client application, we accept responses, but we don't, send any responses because this is the client side application. We make requests and we accept responses from servers. So we're not going to be looking at how to actually set them and send them as a server, but as a client, you can still set them and then send them over. So as you can see here, we have this nice HTTP headers class from Angular. It has a constructor, and then it has some methods or functions that you can use. And there are many different functions that you can see here. So we have one to append, one to set, and one to delete, and etc. And we're going to take a look at those in a second. But you can also scroll down just to take a look at, exactly the definitions of those methods and how to use them, etc. And you can just go in there and just browse for yourself if you want. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and use this class, which we have in Angular, and then we're going to see how we can pass in some headers to the request. Now, another thing is we're not going to be processing those headers because we don't own the backend, and we don't necessarily have to go into the backend to do anything with those headers either, because I'm just showing you how you can pass those headers to a backend server, which means this is focused on the front end side of things. So how we can set headers and how we can receive them, but not how we can set them as a server, because this is the client application. So we're going to take a look at this class and see how we can pass in HTTP headers with Angular.